Hello, this is Lachlan Brown here. We are taking a look back at the worst AFL trades that happened for each club for the last 30 years, dating back to 1994. We start with the Adelaide Crows. One of the worst trades they made, it was in 2000. Traded away Evan Hewitt, who only got a handful of games on that knife side, who were pretty good. They traded him to the Crows just to get pick 23. And played 15 more games at the Crows before getting delisted. Well, that was a big blunder for the Adelaide Crows. Considering Evan Hewitt only played 15 games for the Crows, and it was traded to us before we even knew who pick 23 was. Pick 23 turned out to be Drew Petrie, one of the best forwards to play for North Melbourne post Wayne Carey. Now for Brisbane. The worst ever trade Brisbane have done. Well, we go back to 1999 for this one. They traded away pick 21 to the Sydney Swans in return for one season of Stephen Carey. Well, anyone remember him? He's played just 13 games for Brisbane before getting delisted in 2000. However, pick 21 didn't turn out to be much good for Sydney either. They picked Scott Stevens, who later became a pretty good player at Adelaide. Well, just a year after Stephen Carey left, they won the premiership in 3 in a row they won. However, another bad trade blunder they made was 2009. The Lions traded away pick 12 and their teenage forward, Lockie Henderson, to the Carlton Football Club in return for Brendan Favola. Bad trade for Brisbane. Anyways, I'll be back soon. Just got some other stuff to do. Anyways, back to the video. Carlton. Their worst trade they made, well, it was 2010. They traded away Richmond Premiership winner Sean Grigg to the Tigers in return for Andrew Collins. I don't think Blues fans will even remember Andrew Collins. He wasn't that good for the Blues. And they lost nearly 200 games to Sean Grigg. He could have been a great player for Carlton for a long term if it weren't for that trade with the Tigers, Collingwood. Well, you thought it was the Lockie Schultz trade from 2023 or the try to get rid of Adam Treloar in 2020 was really bad. Well, we couldn't go past that dodgy trade they made in 2018. They traded away, well, just about everything to the Brisbane Lions to bring Dane Beams back to Collingwood. That was one of the worst trades for Collingwood. Beams only played a further 9 games for the Magpies. As for Brisbane, however, they made 6 straight finals and won a flag without him. However, Collingwood still managed to win the flag for a few years after Beams retired. Essendon. Well, 2009 again. The Bombers traded away pick 16 to the Hawks for Mark Williams. Remember Mark Williams, Hawthorn fans? He was pretty good for you in 2008. Essendon fans, well, I don't think you got much memory of him. He played 4 games for Essendon. He didn't even kick a single goal during their losses. During their wins, he kicked 5. Only when he played, he kicked 5 goals. Fremantle. Well, it's 1994 for this one. Not 1, not 2. They made 3 awful trades in the same off-season. Well, we start off with the first trade. We all know it was the Andrew McLeod for Chris Groom trade. It was really bad. How about this next deal Freo made? They traded for... They got Todd Ridley, Tony Delaney, and Russell Williams from the Bombers in return to get access to 2 17-year-olds. And those 2 17-year-olds combined for 1,000 goals at the Dons. Matthew Lloyd and Scott Lucas. What were you doing at Fremantle? They could have been yours. Not Essendon's. That was dodgy. And another one was Jeff Farmer. Well, not the trade when he went back to Freo 7 years later. But would have won when he left originally. To go to Melbourne. In return for Phil Gilbert. Phil Gilbert. Who? You could have had Jeff Farmer, Matty Lloyd, and Scott Lucas in the same forward line, Freo. Same with Tony Mondra. That could have been your 2000 premiership, Freo. What were you doing? What were you doing in the 1994 off-season? Now for Geelong. The Cats' worst trade they made, well, we go back to 2000 and... Mate, we go back to 2000 for this one. When the Cats made a play for Mitchell White as a free agent. Mitchell White, he barely did anything at the Cats. He was past his prime when he left West Coast. And another one was 1998. When they traded the 8th pick to the Sydney Swans in return for Jason Mooney and Simon Arnott. That really hurts the Cats fans. When they could have had Jude Bolton to add to their midfield. If they had Jude Bolton, well, they could have probably won a couple more premierships. They could have won in 2004. And they could have had one in 2005. And maybe 2008. Gold Coast Suns. Well, it was 2011. And they made a 3-team trade involving Melbourne. When the Suns was when the traders saw Mitch Clark go to Melbourne, which we'll get to the Melbourne part of it later. Gold Coast, they traded for Matthew Warnock. To make matters worse, they got rid of Dane Zorko. Wow. And he was your hometown hero. He was in your hometown, Gold Coast. You just traded him. Traded him to get 3 years of Matthew Warnock. Yeah, man. He wasn't that good. He was responsible for Gold Coast losing 14 games to start the 2012 season. Yeah, they've made some shockers, the Gold Coast. Another shocker trade they made was in 2018. When they traded for Corey Ellis. He played just 4 games for the Suns. 2017 was another shocker. They got rid of pick 2. Just to get Lockie Weller. Wait. There's more to come. Dion Prestia for pick 7. That was another failure. Pick 44 for 2 years of Jarrod Lyons. That was a failure. And Gold Coast, they've made some absolute failures in the trade period. Another failure they made was, well, when they made a play for Jared Grant. Well, just after he came to the Gold Coast, the Western Bulldogs won a premiership without him. Dogs didn't really need him. GWS. The Giants' worst trade they made was in 2018. When they traded away Dylan Shield to Essendon to get a pick 11 in the draft. That turned out to Jai Caldwell, and, well, it was not the worst part. The worst part was when they traded him to Essendon in return for, well, pretty much nothing. Not a very good deal for the Giants. Hawthorn. Well, Hawthorn really make mistakes in the trade period. And, well, one of the big mistakes they made, it was in 2016. They were coming towards the end of their dynasty. So they tried solving their future forward problems with Ty Vickery as a free agent. Vickery played just 6 games in the club and kicked 2 goals. Another dodgy deal they made was 3 years later, when they made a play for Jonathan Patton. And they traded away their second round pick to GWS to make the deal happen. Patton had a wretched run with injuries at Hawthorn before he hung up the boots after just 8 games and 4 goals. Bad run for the Hawks in that one. Then there's Melbourne. Out of the catalogue of bad trade decisions, we go back to 2011 for this one, when they traded away pick 12 to the Brisbane Lions just to get Mitch Clark to the club. We all know Mitch Clark had his struggles at Melbourne, injuries, addiction, mental health issues. He retired in March 2014 before attempting a comeback to play for Geelong. And he played just 8 more games since. Brisbane's pick 12 turned into Sam Doherty, who became a pretty good player at Carlton. North Melbourne. There was the one trade that ruined everything. It was 2009. North had future free Tom Hawthorn premiership hero Josh Gibson on their books. And yet the Rouge traded him for less of a packet of chips. North Melbourne have not been the same team since. And they have not even had an MCG home game since that trade happened. As for Hawthorn, they won 3 in a row since they got Gibson. Port Adelaide. The worst deal the Power had made. We go back to season 2006 for this one, when Port Adelaide traded away their first round draft pick to Hawthorn. Well, Hawthorn strike again with this one. The Power in return get Nathan Loney. And that trade was almost like the reverse Burgoyne deal. But except the Loney deal was much worse for Port Adelaide. He played just 40 games in 3 years for the Power. Hawthorn, they got Grant Birchall with this pick. He later went on to play 250 games in his career. Richmond. Worst deal in Richmond Tigers history was... last 30 years, we have to go back to 2002 for this one. Man. This was a dodgy trade. When Richmond made a play for Justin Blumfield. He was Justin Blunder at the Tigers. He's not the same player as what he was at Essendon. Another dodgy trade that happened for the Tigers was when they traded away pretty much most of their future assets to GWS to bring in Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper. Those two had contributed to the Tigers', downfall from a contender to a rebuilding side. St Kilda. This trade has got to hurt the Saints fans. You had your chance to get Nat Fife, but the pick was traded to Essendon just so they can do no games of Andrew Lovett. Well, he only lasted 10 minutes at St Kilda before he got sacked. Worst trade in Saints history. And that was the trade to cause Ross Lyon to quit as their coach a few years later. And that was the trade that cost St Kilda a potential premiership. As for the Swans, their dodgy play they made, we go back to 2012 for this one, when they signed Kurt Tippett in the pre-season draft. That was a dodgy deal for the Swans. That was the deal that pretty much ended all their hopes to win a premiership. West Coast Eagles. We go back to 2019 for this one. West Coast have pretty much gave up on their entire future to Geelong and GWS and Essendon. Jeez, they got three teams got affected by West Coast's decision to trade for Tim Kelly. Although Tim Kelly turned out to be a good player for the Eagles. But they didn't need to gamble their entire future to get him. Well, they would have been better. Geelong would have been better. They would have been better off getting Tim Kelly in the pre-season draft and letting him walk. Geelong would have been better off letting him walk to give West Coast some sort of a future. Western Bulldogs. Well, we go back to 2013 for this one. They traded away their chance to get the Bolton Zach Merritt in the same midfield as they made a play for Stuart Cramery. Worst deal for the Dogs. Cramery missed out on winning a premiership. And he wasn't the same once Beveridge arrived. As for Essendon, Merritt did lead into a few finals. And there we go. It's the worst trades in the last 30 years.